2021. And we're going to call the regular meeting agenda, or the regular meeting for the Ottawa City Commission. As we've done with all of our meetings, we begin with a disclosure statement that is read by our city clerk, Melissa Reed. Melissa, would you like to take it away?
This is Melissa Reed, City Clerk, and I will be providing information for remote access as well as procedural guidelines that will be followed for this meeting. Due to the efforts to mitigate the spread of COVID-19, physical access to the City Commission meeting will be restricted. In accordance with Kansas Open Meetings Act, the meeting can be viewed live on Channel 23 and via Facebook Live, or listened to by dialing 1-312-626-6799 and entering meeting ID 979-6273-3505#. Guidelines for this meeting are as follows. Each member of the public, staff, or presenter is required to state the individual's name and title, if any, each time the individual begins speaking or voting, so that the individual can be identified by remote listeners or observers. Citizens that submitted comments by 4 p.m. today to publiccomments@ottawakansas.gov were given to the City Commission to be read during public comments or during discussion on an agenda item. The Commission must describe at the beginning of the meeting the process that will be used for a closed or executive meeting pursuant to KSA 75-4319 and amendments thereto.
Thank you so much. We are going to begin our meeting with a roll call, please.
Mayor Kaler.
Present.
Commissioner Crowley.
Present.
Commissioner Skidmore.
Present.
Commissioner Jorgensen. And Commissioner Weigand.
All right. Well, we've got 3 of our commissioners here, and I know that Commissioner Jorgensen was going to miss today. I'm not sure, but hopefully Commissioner Weigand will join us soon. I'd like to welcome everybody to our meeting tonight. It is been such a beautiful day today. I hope that you all got a chance to get out and enjoy the warmth and the sunshine that was provided to us. We are going to begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we will be followed by the invocation, which will be led tonight by the pastor at Cherry Street Wesleyan, Pastor Miller. So please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, that's fun. As usual, it's a great honor to be invited to invite the Holy Spirit into these meetings, and I'll be glad when we're all in the same room. I'm sure you guys will too, and hopefully that's not too far away. In Scripture, it tells us that God ordains the leaders, and so I not to put it on you, but you've been ordained by God to lead this wonderful city, and you guys have done such an awesome job through all of this time, and even before the pandemic, you guys were doing a great job. But and just to know, you guys, we're praying for you a lot, It's many hard decisions are being made during these times, I'm sure, and you can't make everybody happy. So our heart goes out to you leaders. Know that God's put you in that place and he's using you in wonderful ways, and you're doing a wonderful job. A city of great people that love you very much. So let's invite the Holy Spirit here to guide this and continue blessing you guys and guiding you through this process. So please bow with me. Heavenly Father, we just thank you so much for the wonderful team that you've put together for this city. It can't be the easiest job, that's for sure. Trying to navigate a whole city through these times, decisions that got to be made. I pray that you continue to give them insight and wisdom. I pray that you continue to bless them and their families. Let their families know what it means to us, the citizens, to have such great leaders. I hope they understand that we're appreciative of the leadership. So bless these families, continue to lead and guide the leaders of this wonderful town. And may we all just someday, real soon, stop doing Zooms and be back together in a room or have a barbecue somewhere. So thank you, Lord, for these wonderful leaders. Continue to guide them and bless them. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Amen. Pastor
Thank you.
Miller, we hope that you'll be there at one of our very first meetings that we're not Zooming in. We always look forward to your guidance and your really positive words. Thank you for helping us and keeping us in your thoughts. We appreciate
Well,
it.
it's true. We really do love you guys, and we do pray for you, and continue being led by the Spirit. You guys will do wonderful things. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pastor Miller. We appreciate your time today. Commissioners, that moves us on to the consent agenda, which includes minutes from January 6th, February 15th, February 17th, and February 22nd study sessions. Commissioners, do you have, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Commissioner Crowley, make that motion.
Mayor Pro Tem Crowley makes the motion. Is there a second?
Commissioner Wygand will second.
And Commissioner Wygand, we're glad you're here, and we're glad for you to make the second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. All right, motion carries. That moves us on to our regular agenda, which the first item on our agenda is public comment. City Clerk Reed, has there been anybody that has requested for public comment today?
Not tonight.
Okay, well then we will dispense from reading that paragraph. And then the next item on our agenda is the declaration. And at this time, I'd like to give commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication that they might have had that would influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. Commissioners, is there any declaration you'd like to make at this time? I'm looking around, Okay. Oh, and you guys are all, yeah. I'm ready to go away from Zoom too, but you're all in one row right here. And that kind of makes it a lot easier than trying to find you all over my screen. So, all right, no declaration to be had tonight. Commissioners, we have our next item is to approve the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Sure.
Commissioner Wygand will make a motion to approve.
All right. Is there a second?
Commissioner Crowley will second.
All right, Commissioner Crowley seconds. Is there any discussion? Is all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay. It was a couple ayes and a thumb. So I think that's definitely three. Yeah, 3 goods and 4 with me. That moves us on to new business, which is, we begin with, excuse me, it's been a long day on Zoom. The 2021 funding agreement with Ottawa Main Street Association. And I'm going to ask our city manager if he would please set up this conversation, please.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, and citizens. Richard Neinstead, City Manager. This is the initial 2021 contract with Ottawa Main Street Association that we've been talking about. It is for $15,000. It is for 6 months. It does have the changes in it you wanted, like coma training. The Ottawa Main Street Board is aware of that. I fully anticipate that come May, when we do a review and we have a report on how Ottawa Main Street Association is doing, that you will then go ahead and allocate the remaining $15,000 for the rest of the year. You have budgeted $30,000 in budget year 2021 for these activities. And I believe I see Mary Rayleigh. I see her name, so I'm assuming that Mary Rayleigh, who is chair of Ottawa Main Street Association, is available for questions and or to make a comment.
Yes, this is Mary Rayleigh, Ottawa Main Street, and I'm open for any comments.
Commissioner Skidmore just has a brief question. I guess with regard to the coma training, you mentioned it the other day. Are there any updates on that at this point?
This is Mary Rayleigh, Ottawa Main Street. We just regrouped our board, so we are actually going to be reaching out to Blaine. He is our attorney for the Ottawa Main Street, and I know in the past he has done coma training. And then I know that some people on our board know of some other people that are certified to do that. So we will be reaching out, and we're hoping to talk about that and discuss that at our next meeting, which will be this coming Monday.
Commissioners, are there additional questions that you may have for Mary? No?
Mayor,
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore, I'd like to make the motion that we approve that funding agreement we spoke of, the 6-month funding agreement to end at the end of June.
Commissioner Wygand would second that motion.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the 2021 funding agreement, which is on a shortened schedule right now. Motion by Commissioner Skidmore, seconded by Commissioner Wygand. Are there comments by any of our commissioners? I may just want to say before we vote that Ottawa Main Street is just, and I know many of us believe this. It's the front porch to our wonderful home here, and we see complete value in keeping a strong Main Street. And we believe that that can be done with the help of Ottawa Main Street. So we look forward to them doing good things.
And Mayor Taylor, just as one more comment, Commissioner Skidmore, just saying that I'm confident that the things will change for the better and that we'll be revisiting this in June and extending the contract for the rest of the year. So I'm very confident in the potential at Main Street, and I'm looking forward to an entire year contract next time.
Me too. Is there any other comments, commissioners? If not, then we will proceed to vote.
How do you vote, Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Wygand?
I vote yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen is absent, and Mayor Taylor.
And I vote yes, motion carries. Thank you, Mary. We look forward to good stuff coming from Ottawa Main Street.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Well, the next item on our agenda is a storm recovery cost update. And I just have to tell you before I yield to Director Tharp and Director Lee, which will lead us in this conversation. Today has been an extremely busy day on this. In fact, the last 48 hours have been extremely busy to deal with this on a statewide level. And I believe that Dennis and Wendy are going to be able to give us an update on how things are going. They've modified the PowerPoint just a little bit, and then I'll have an update based on what happened today in Topeka to share with our citizenry at the end of the presentation. So Director Tharp.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. We appreciate the chance to address this issue again. And to start this, I'm going to yield to Wendy. And she is going to run through what is a presentation that we will provide and have already provided to the public where they can go for some information related to this. So we will start there.
Good evening, Commissioners. We're not sure that you've seen this, but in addition to you, we'd like to be sure that any other public that are participating have an opportunity to see that on Monday, we asked our media specialist to put out a PowerPoint that we had put together with some finance and other staff to just kind of, and maybe some of you have seen what Kansas Gas has put out, but basically just kind of a short and sweet, hey, we want you to know we're working on this message. And so we are clearly calling to their attention that, yes, sorry, I've got to get my controllers going. That we understand that we had an event and that we've done a couple of things. And some of this we haven't even really shared with you. For example, we had some folks questioning last week that they were using dripping faucets to keep from having things freeze. And then we subsequently got some calls about, hey, do you think that'll affect my bill negatively? Meaning, will I have a much higher bill because of the drips? And so we did a survey, wanted people to know that we did a survey of a bunch of different households and found that really was negligible impact to their water bill. And that's got a secondary impact because we also evaluate the wastewater bill this time of year. We do an averaging of the water usage during the winter to set the wastewater bill for the year. And so it was a good question that people asked us and we wanted to have that answer. We also wanted to remind people that because we provide more than one utility, their bill is not just electric, nor is it just water, at least not typically. There are a few customers out there that may have one or another. And that, yes, if they weren't able to do some conservation, then they may have had a higher than normal electric bill. And what we really, here's the real point of the message. We wanted to let people know that we hadn't fully determined it. And even as of today, even though we have more information, we're still evaluating and trying to work that out, obviously with our leadership. And so we wanted to let people know that we will work with them. They can begin asking questions. Most of our customers haven't yet been read out of that storm, but we're happy to talk to them about the options that are available both with the city, with some of our partners in the community. And even today we started promoting some information that's available through the state. And so we want to tell them that. We want to explain all those options. We want to help people understand their bill better. And we're committed to helping our customers through this. And we want to make sure that they know we are working very hard to do that. So we pledged to come back with a better picture of the impact. And that really is something we're going to show you tonight, like we did on Monday with our other PowerPoint. And we will share that with them too. But we pledged that as soon as we had a better information, we would come back and give them that information. And towards that end, I would also tell you that while we're still working through what we're going to do, we have already agreed internally here about some efforts we will make to do some public education through the bill system as well as direct mailing. Because while it's wonderful that we have Facebook and we have a website, we have a lot of customers, and certainly there are a number of them that don't necessarily go and get their information there. And so we want to be sure we're communicating to all of our customers. So that takes care of that PowerPoint. Just a second, I got to switch. Sorry, it takes just a second to close out of one and open to the other. Okay. So I want to be sure you're seeing, can you see the slideshow, or are you seeing the whole parts of the slideshow?
We are seeing your
Baby.
beautiful baby.
Yeah,
Seeing a
Here we
beautiful
are now.
baby.
Jack was there.
How about now?
Yes.
You
Got
got
it
it.
now.
All right, Dennis, take it away.
All right. This is Dennis Tharp, Director of Utilities, and Mayor and Commissioners. I know we have been through this before. We are doing our best, putting our best foot forward to try to get this information out, not only to you, but to the public, so that everybody has as clear as possible a picture of what happened and what that may look like as we move down the road. I would ask tonight that as we move through this, those of us that have been dealing with this for a couple of weeks now, at least, it's easy for us to make assumptions and maybe skip past something that you may think is important. So don't hesitate to stop us, stop me, stop Wendy. If there's questions, let's deal with them right at that point in time. And if there's something you think I'm missing or something you think I maybe said last time that you're not hearing, don't hesitate to do that either. We want to be as transparent again as possible that we can be. This is about the impact of the winter storm that really impacted the whole region, not just Ottawa, Kansas. It impacted from Texas to the Canadian border, right up through the middle of the country. And so what we're talking about here, we want everybody to understand that this is not just Ottawa, Kansas. And I can tell you from folks that I have talked to over the last couple of weeks that, quite honestly, we have weathered this better than many. There are those that will be impacted on a financial basis far more than what we have been impacted here. And the numbers we're talking about here, I'm not trying to make light of them. They are big numbers and they are numbers that we have to deal with. But again, and I think I will point that out as we move through this, they could have been far worse. So we'll move on. So as I said before, this really started on Friday, the 12th of February. In the morning, when we get daily gas prices through KMEA, gas prices were around the $9 range. And before the day was over that day, gas prices had risen to around $44. And we will talk about why that impacts everything that we have seen. We are not a gas utility. I would make that clear now, that we do not provide gas to the community, but we are impacted and the region is impacted when gas prices start to change. On the weekend, over the weekend, the 13th and the 14th, we really began to see what that impact was beginning to look like. And it very quickly, this was a very quickly and very fast evolving situation. And there was a lot of scrambling starting Sunday evening going into Monday to deal with what was very quickly becoming an emergency situation. On the 15th, which was Monday, gas prices rose, or electric prices began to rise for a lot of reasons. Wind began to go away, not only because there wasn't as much wind, but because when it is that cold, most of the turbines this far south are really not designed to run in that kind of cold. So that we lost a lot of that generation. And then gas began to be curtailed to large transport users, which are the generation users and others. But as that curtailment began to take place to make sure that life safety was handled with residential gas being provided, we began to see generation dwindle. It was at that point on the 15th that not only our generation, but municipal generation across not only Kansas, but Nebraska, Missouri, and across the Midwest began to fire up, those that were capable of diesel generation. Our diesel generation fired up and it ran from the 15th to the 19th. It basically ran that whole week, started Monday morning and ran through really Friday evening when we finally did shut down. We can move on. Because of what we did with our units, our generation units, as you can see in this graph, we were able to mitigate costs that we likely would have incurred through this event. This takes place as we reduce our load and reduce our exposure, what we call our exposure to the market, or what power that we have to buy out of the market in order to provide for our customers. So in the first, or actually in the second column, you can see that the energy that we provided the community, you can see what those costs were during that day. And you can see that total of about $3.2 million. Because of our generation and what we were doing with our generation, we were able to reduce those costs by that last column, which is 72%, about $2.3 million, which at the end of the day, that number is not exact. It's what we came up early on in this. We like this graph because it shows a lot of good things. As we go through this, you will see actually what our final number for this event is. But if you look down, I think important in this graph is that third week of February average. And the total of that is about $60,000. Well, that's typically what we would hope to pay. And what we are going to end up paying on that third week is far, far above that. So we have been working on a plan to mitigate these costs to our customers. And that is something that we will look at as we move through the rest of these slides. We wanted to show the pricing. The next couple of slides show the pricing that we were seeing from SPP. This is an Excel spreadsheet that we get actually from our partner KMEA, which is our joint action agency. It's Kansas Municipal Energy Agency. And we see this pricing on a daily basis. This is the pricing we saw on the 17th. And the whole week was similar to this. But as you will see in the next slide, these prices look pretty good compared to what they look like on the 18th.
Director Tharp,
Yes.
before you move forward, would you explain to individuals who may be looking at this and don't understand what EMP1 is? I know that but would you explain to individuals who are
Sure.
on the left-hand side at the top what EMP1 actually stands for?
Within the KMEA structure, there are 3 EMP groups. These are groups that are put together basically by region. EMP1 is the group that we are a member of, and the 1 is because it was the first group that EMP established, or the KMEA established, and it encompasses about 6, I think it's 7 cities now. But then there's 2 other groups that one of them is kind of to the southwest. The other is kind of the rest of the western part of the state. Each of those have their own unique problems and situations that they deal with, and has been a very effective way for KMEA to deal with the member cities. KMEA has about 71 member cities across the state of Kansas, which encompasses the lion's share of the cities across Kansas. Again, this graph itself just shows the pricing as we saw it rise through the course of the week. What we have here in this next slide and what we wanted to talk about is kind of how the structure of this week played out. The billing actually ran from the 10th to the 16th. And so through the course of this event, it got split. It got split in half, or basically in half. And what we are showing here is the first bill. A couple of things of note, and we've highlighted them in yellow, are 1, when we got the bill, which was on the 26th of February, and 2nd, when it was due. There was an expectation of fast turnaround because in the midst of this, everybody was suffering from lack of cash flow. Wendy, you got one other up there on us. Okay. And so you can see that the first half of this bill, which again ran from the 10th to the 16th, was $537,000. Monday, when we were talking about this bill, this is really all we knew, is what the first half of our bill was going to be. Through some of the rest of these slides, we did some speculation, some estimating, some best guess. But what we can tell you now is our guesses, no, it wasn't guesses. It was hard work by a lot of people that have spent some time learning to understand the market and how we fit in the market. And so we were estimating that the second bill would get us to about $1.2 million. Well, as you can see in this, when we got the second bill, which is for the 17th from the 17th to the 23rd and has the same turnaround time. It has about a 4-day turnaround time. The second bill was $654,515.31. And there you're looking at the total. It was $1.191,540.95. So I give kudos to all of our team to have been as close as we were to what we believe we would see coming out of the market. And this was, we had help from KMEA through this process too. That is a partnership that we hope that we continue to nurture and make work. Along with this, as we've gone through this, it has become apparent that there could be some other costs that could be incurred related to our firm products. Two of those in particular, the Grand River Dam Authority and the Dogwood plant that both we are a part of, incurred some costs through this. The Dogwood plant eventually shut down, but it did get hit with some of those higher gas prices. And GRDA, which, as I had explained before, is a mix of generation types, will experience some costs through this too. As we understand it right at this point in time, GRDA is working very hard, just like we are, to take care of their retail customers. And I think as they look at wholesale customers, we believe, at least at this point in time, that we will see them do some of that for us. So whatever those costs are, we expect them possibly to be spread out some. We do not own huge megawatts in these, although GRDA, we do have pretty much 12 megawatts from them around the clock. So we, again, I'm not going to speculate from there, but we will likely will see some costs, but we believe it's costs that we can pretty much handle in our normal rate structure. So I don't believe at this point in time, at least, that this is a huge concern to us. What we wanted to show here is kind of the process that we've been through for the last 3 or 4 years. We experienced a point in time when we made some decisions to cash pay for some projects, which in turn had run our cash balance down a little lower than we would like for it to be. That cash balance is typically somewhere in the $3.5 to $5 million range. And as you can see in this graph, we did have that pretty much built up to that $4 million range, that kind of mid-range of what we were shooting for over the last 2 or 3 years. That, along with the rate increases, which have helped to build that back, have put us in a position where we believe that we're in pretty good shape going into what we want to do here. I think we can move on, Wendy. So what we are showing in this first slide related to expenses to customers is what that $1.2 million looks like. We have talked at length about ways that we can not only mitigate, but spread these costs to our customers. There is no perfect way. I would say that right off the get-go, that there is no perfect way. But what we've looked at is, as a community, we're in this together. You know, this is a bill that we have to pay. And what we landed on was looking at our various classes of billing that we do, our rate classes. And you can see that to the left-hand side. And then we took that $1.2 million and said, let's just look at that and what does that mean to a customer in each of those classes. And so what you're seeing is how that $1.2 million breaks down to each class and what that means to each class. I think we can jump from there. And then the next slide, what we did here is we broke that down. So we have $1.2 million to take care of. If we break that $1.2 million down to a per bill, then you see in the per bill column what that means to a customer if it was just a one-time payment to each customer. That's spread over 6,300 meters, not in each class, but overall. Then what we did is we took that $1.2 million and broke that further to a monthly bill over 10 months per customer. And then what that breaks down to is what you see in the final column. Now, keep in mind, we're talking about $1.2 million here. We're actually just a little under $1.2 million. And the next slide is going to allow me to talk a little bit about what we believe as an organization we can do to mitigate that even further. So we looked at our cash balances, our reserves, and thought we could equitably bring 500,000 of that into the organization and just take care of it up front. We would then spread $700,000 out to our customers. And in doing that, we reduce even further the impact that it has per customer. So what you're seeing here is, first of all, that $700,000 broke down just like we did per class, then broke down per bill, and then spread out over 10 months. And as you can see, that mitigates the impact quite a lot. And we believe that this is an equitable solution to move forward in not only recouping the money that we need to recoup to keep our utility healthy and keep it moving forward, but it spreads that cost out so it makes it as affordable as possible to each of our customers. I'm going to stop there and ask for questions if there are any.
Commissioners, do you have questions for Director Tharp or for Director Lee regarding the presentation that you have seen? And it's very similar, and kudos to everybody who came literally almost on the mark with 1.2. It's not a number we are excited to hear, but I'm proud of the staff for doing that. But Commissioners, what questions do you have regarding the presentation so far?
Okay, hearing none, Wendy. And this is a place where I'm going to let Director Lee jump in. I guess I'm going to ask her, not let her. How's that?
This is Wendy Lee, Director of Community Development and Acting Finance Director. And I'll also note that we have our consultant with us, Brian Knipe. So when we get further here in the financials, if there's some questions you have for either of us, we're happy to answer that. This slide just represents that we had considered doing this over 12 months. We talked about that on Monday. It sounded as if the commission supported a 10-month gather, and we want to make sure the public understands that part of that is out of a concern that should there be any other weather issues next winter or something, that we not end up with surcharge on top of surcharge, which would make the situation much worse, and felt that for a residential customer, the 546 or what will be slightly under that, depending on what's ultimately put in place, was for the most of our customers, that's what they would see as a difference. We also, during Monday's discussion, there was a question about how quickly could we put this into place. And so I wanted to make sure we showed you kind of our zones. We divide the community into 4 zones. The meters are red, one group in 1 week, typically of the month. Each zone is red in a given week. And then we mail out the bills, and then we have the due date of the bills. And so our comments on Monday were that if we were to pass a resolution on this next Monday, the 8th, what would be the soonest that we could see that in a bill? And because of the way our billing works and mailing, et cetera, what we believe now is the soonest we could do that would be in the billing for Zone 25, which would be mailed out on the 22nd of March and due on April 10th. So there would be no change in the customer's bills in the meantime, other than their normal usage changes. And that may actually be very helpful for them, simply because they may have had a slightly higher electric usage during the event. And that may then be out of the way and paid for before they see this surcharge. And as I mentioned, I think on Monday, or I've mentioned anyway in one of our meetings, oftentimes April and May and June, before we hit into the summer, are some of our lower bills anyway, and that may make it a little bit easier to work into the budget if that's the case for many of our residents. It also gives us enough time to put the information out, and as I said at the beginning of the first PowerPoint, our plan is to at this point, we're really strongly considering a separate mailing to each of our customers. But at the very least, we would at least put some of the information from the PowerPoint here tonight on the back of the bill, so that all customers have something in their mail. And if it's an electronic customer, we do have customers who receive all their information electronically. We can easily email that out as well. But it's the mailing ones that we want to be sure that we have put together a comprehensive communication in advance of their getting their first bill. So that was another question that we were asked to consider. And I think that's really the end of what we wanted to communicate to you, but we're happy to answer any questions, or if you have other thoughts or concerns before we were to talk about this further on Monday.
Commissioners, do you have questions of Director Tharp or Director Lee regarding their presentation?
Mayor Kaler, if I may, I would like to come back and make just a couple of points.
Oh, yes.
What I would like to point out to the community, and I hope every one of them sees this or tries their best to get a hold of the information that we're putting out here. But this community should be very proud, not only of what's been done today, but what has been done in the past. You know, without our mix of generation and the things that we are capable of as a utility that this community has done over a period of time, this could have been devastating. But this community did not experience any of the rolling back blackouts. And we had many people call us concerned about whether they were going to be a part of those rolling blackouts or exactly what was going on. And we were able to tell them that we were relatively sure that that was not going to happen, and it did not. Now, I will come back and say, yes, we did have a couple of issues, a couple of smaller outages, but really those were things that we typically would experience. Equipment does fail, and we do have issues at points in time. So I wanted not only to point that out, but the fact that this was an extraordinary event. And while we are not coming out of this unscathed, we are still coming out of this much better. And I speak from experience, from people that I have talked to, that we are coming out of this much better than many other communities, not only around us, but across the Midwest. And so I kind of wanted to drive that point home before we wrap this up. And as Director Lee said, we will certainly stand for any questions that the community has.
Mayor Kaler. Commissioner
Yes, Commissioner
Skidmore.
Skidmore.
Sure. I guess with the 10-month projected plan, that should get everything paid up by January, I guess. Okay, I just kind of want.
With when we believe that as Director Lee showed in that one slide, what we believe now with where we will be able to roll this out, we believe that January would get us done with this surcharge. And that we intend to look at this as a surcharge. It would be a separate charge on our customers' bills, so they knew exactly what they were paying for and related to this event.
Okay, and Commissioner Skidmore, another question. I know we've been hearing about plans out of Topeka to help the municipalities in some capacity. Do we know when that will be decided, and how soon do we need to decide on this 60-40 split and getting this rolling soon?
I believe Mayor
Mr.
Kaler
Skidmore,
can
this is-
address
yeah.
that.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, Commissioner Skidmore, this is Mayor Kaler, and I'm going to address that as soon as we're done with this. And it's good news.
Okay, good. And just one more comment too, Commissioner Skidmore. Yes, I've had several people tell us where they're very thankful we didn't have the rolling blackouts. Like Commissioner Wygant is so aptly demonstrating for us tonight, what it might look like, I suppose, if we had rolling blackouts at a commission meeting. But anyway, looking forward to hearing what Mayor Kaler has to say about that.
Director Tharp, this is Mayor Kaler speaking. Could you tell me, this isn't the first time it's ever gotten cold in Ottawa, ever. And it will get cold once again. We just know it. But because this was an extraordinary, it was an extraordinary length, and it really was a deep, deep, deep cold. How do we generally handle when there is a cold spell on a normal year? How are those costs handled?
As a general rule, I've got to go back to, this was an extraordinary event. We have always seen prices both in the wintertime and the summertime come up some. And then, they'll roll up and down as the weather changes back and forth. This was a prolonged event that, many people just simply were not ready for. We've seen a number of things happen, well, not only in our community, but in communities across the nation. We talk about, how some of our load has been relatively flat for a period of time. But as a region, we have seen loads grow due to industry or whatever that may be exponentially. And so what happens in an event like this is when you lose certain portions of generation that is typically counted on to provide the electricity across the footprint. And I'll come back and give some numbers, quite honestly, but wind generation typically across the SPP footprint is 43%. Well, if you lose 43% and have to scramble to make that up, it's virtually impossible. And because those loads are high enough that quite honestly, I don't think there was any plan for that. Then you put gas curtailment on top of that. We saw times when the demand in the SPP market was 4,000 or 5,000 megawatts higher than the available generation. Now, that sounds a little weird to everybody, and you've got to understand a little bit in depth about the electric market to know that that doesn't necessarily shut people off. But it becomes a mix that is very, very hard to deal with, and it is what drives prices high when those kinds of events taking place. We've had cold weather before. I've experienced, 10 below and 20 below in Kansas, and I've lived here all my life. But typically not the prolonged kind of event that we have seen here.
Thank you for that summary. I appreciate it. Commissioners, do you have additional questions? Our city manager is feverishly holding his hand up because I think he probably doesn't have a question. I bet he has a comment. And I'm not listening to him. As you can see, I'm just trying to not see his picture. Commissioners, do you have any additional questions? All right, if not, City Manager Heinstead, what would you like to share with us tonight?
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Richard Heinstead, City Manager. I want to kind of answer that question a little bit different way. Wendy, would you put up the PowerPoint page that has what our quote unquote normal charges might be at the bottom of it?
Sorry, I got to move around in there just a second.
Slide 3.
Oh,
Right there. All right. If you look at this, and Dennis, correct me if I'm wrong, if you look at the bottom half that says the average cost third week per February, look at the differences in those. Normally those bills come in, the invoices come in. This is how I understand the system works. Invoices come in, they automatically go to finance once a month. Those are once a month bills, or once a month, say 60,000. Goes down to finance and they calculate an energy charge adjustment. And then that goes on to the bill for the customers and you pay it that month and you're done with it. What's different about this one, and it's because the team in City Hall recognized that it would have an immediate impact upon our customers and more of an impact than in a normal year. And that's why, in essence, we have bypassed the ECA on this event. And we're recommending to you that we go to a flat amount on the bill. I also want to say, and Dennis and Wendy hit upon this, it's not like we're not paying $500,000. That is being paid. That is coming through in electric revenue that's coming into the system. It just so happens that because of what Mr. Thorpe talked to about being in a better position, that we could use that to mitigate, but we're still paying $1.2 million in additional cost. And the other thing I'd say is, as we go through this, Mrs. Lee showed you our public message out there, is we understand whatever amount is on that bill, people are going to struggle. We know they've struggled through COVID. We have 3.4% unemployment in Franklin County. Now that may not sound high, but if you're unemployed, it's high. And we recognize that. And we will work and work and work some more with our customers to help them be whole on their bills. So I want our citizens to remember when they open that bill up, don't think that someone is not going to listen, because we will. Our people downstairs will work with you on working to resolve that bill. Thank
And
you.
Mayor,
Yes, Mrs. Lee.
I just also wanted to add, when you asked about that week and the things that were done that week, it's probably fair also to note that while we read all of our electric meters during that week, we did, because of the extreme cold and the snow on the ground, we did estimate some water meters. And so if folks are concerned about that, they'll have an E next to theirs that should tell them that that water was an estimate. Now that's only going to affect those zones, and we'd be happy to talk to people about it, but that'll be a part of our message as well. In fact, I think the billing already says if you have an E next to it at the bottom, it kind of reminds people the E means we estimated. But we didn't feel like we could do that with the electric, of course, and thankfully our staff are diligent in getting out there no matter the temperature, and they walked those routes and got those meter readings done because they knew that this would be stressful for people, and to not have a good picture of what their electric was could potentially be really hard on them. So.
Mayor Kaler, if I may too, I think there's one other thing that maybe we should do, for the public, that either may be listening or may hear this. And I'm going to hit our IT director with something that he's not expecting here, but I think he can do this off the cuff. But Paul, would you jump on and would you tell people where they can find these PowerPoint presentations and any information that is out there and the places that they can go to look for that?
Probably the easiest place to look is on our Facebook page right now. We have these posted up there, but always on our website or our Facebook page. It's a good place to look.
Paul, this is Commissioner Kaler speaking. See it? Are we able to email that to them? Or we're not doing that? Or maybe even, let's put it this way, maybe they don't do computers at all. Can we provide them a paper copy if they want to call City Hall, and they want to come in and have it explained to them or provide them one? We can certainly do that, correct?
Let me answer that. Our staff on the finance desk does have this. I can save it as a PDF and send it if I need to, but we're also going to put together a mailing to all of those people. Again, that'll contain not everything in this PowerPoint, but a lot of the highlights about how we arrived where we did and the extreme effects of the storm. But yes, if somebody really wanted to see a print of it, we're happy to either do that or email it to them.
Well, it's just that, I grew up in the after school specials that you would watch, and the line was always the more you know, and some citizens just really are interested and want to know more. And I want citizens to know that if they are hungry for the knowledge, we are certainly here to answer and to address any knowledge they're looking for.
Mayor Kaler, Commissioner Crowley here. Dennis and Wendy, can you help me with this? Just because I want to be, like I said, 100% transparent with everybody listening. Because I think I explained it to a couple folks today correctly, but I want to make sure I'm right here. Their bill is not going to, their typical bill may not be just $5.46 more. Their bill may be more because of their usage is more. And then on top of that, there will be an additional $5.46 because of that additional charge we're adding, correct?
That is a very good point, Commissioner Crowley, that usage through an event like this for nearly everybody is going to likely be up some. Even in conservation, if they were lowering their thermostat, when it's 10 below, you lower your thermostat to 68 and it still runs all the time. And so, yeah, it is something that people need to recognize, and the kilowatts that are used are listed on their bill. They can take that bill and they can compare it to last year. There's a lot of avenues to figure out if they used more kilowatts, more water, whatever that might be. So yeah, understanding that bill and understanding that their usage was likely up is very important.
Commissioner Crowley here again. So the first bill or two may be a little bit higher and then come back down to typical usage with that additional $5.46. And I'm sorry, I'm speaking specifically just for the residential ones.
And you're absolutely correct. We have seen the markets, both the gas and the electric market come back to what would be normal for this time of year. And all projections say that they will come back to where they were when we entered into this event. So yes, I would say what you're saying is absolutely correct.
And so I've got two more little questions here. One, and once again, we've solely been talking about the electric utility here, but I believe we're probably going to have some water issues also. With the freezing and the broken water pipes, there's probably going to be some excess water usage and not for everybody, like across the board, like the electric utility, but for some individuals, unfortunately. Not saying that there would be the city working with them in a sense of cutting some of that cost, but working with them in some sort of payment plan in order to spread that extra cost out. Would that be, I'm sure, something feasible?
Commissioner, this is Wendy Lee, Acting Finance Director. I almost wish people could come in some days and listen to how much we do that every day now. Most of the customers who actually still come to the counter, it's because they're experiencing something difficult. And even absent this storm, we work every single day with customers who are experiencing an unusual situation. And that could be a job-related thing, as the city manager said, and it could be just, I just found out that my kids left downstairs faucet running for 2 days. And so we work with people if they want to come in and make payments every week to try and get that bill down until they get there, or if they want to pay XYZ amount this today and come back, so that we don't have to put them in a position of cutting them off. We really work hard on that. And if the customer approaches us and talks to us about it, and there are times when we'll notice things, I really have to give credit to the staff. If they're out there, if it's a meter reading situation, or even someone who's processing a bill and realizes there's an unusual high thing, they'll call the customer and sometimes alert them to a fact that there's a possible leak or something happening. So we work really hard to avoid customers not knowing something like that, and then help them identify what they can do to solve it. But yes, we work with them, whether it's a weekly X amount just to try and get that back down. We will sign extra contracts with them and have been doing a lot more of that over the last year with COVID. That staff down there really understands a lot of that. Now, if someone is habitually late or doesn't pay until our service rep turns up, that's different. That doesn't mean we won't listen to what's happening, because they could be experiencing something unusual. But most often, if somebody is, it's just really, this has been a hardship, or there's a medical thing or whatever. And I just want to say, in case it was missed, and I think we mentioned this on Monday, the city took some of the Spark funds that we were granted and used it for the benefit of the residents. Richard, I was over $100,000 that was applied to customers' accounts who were experiencing issues with COVID and needed the utility relief. $100,000 of their debt that we helped them with. And so I appreciate the question, because it's a great question. It's an opportunity to say that despite what people think because they don't come in, every day that staff down there works to help people manage through this, and we will continue to do it.
Commissioner Crowley, if I may, I think oftentimes, I know you've never heard this, that the city doesn't care, the city doesn't work with anybody. When I first came here, we didn't do a whole lot of this. But And through the years, been able to change the culture, get people to understand that we're better off trying to work with somebody than entirely losing them at all. And I will tell you, all of us need help at some times because of something. All of us need help. And you never know when that helping hand that you hold out to a person helps them get back to a better place to where they need to be.
And Commissioner Crowley, I have one more question. So I know we're gonna notate this as a surcharge on the bill. And once again, just speaking specifically for the residential side, so you're $54 roughly, $54.60 or something over the next 10 months. Is there a possibility that if somebody wanted to, they could just come pay that surcharge off at once and then not have that, divided up, through the next 10 months on their bill?
I think Brian's prepared to answer this one.
Well, I can at least speak on it. That has been brought up, and as of right now, we're going to put all of the surcharges on the bills first, make sure that all happens smoothly, and then at that point, we will gauge the amount of people or the response of people who may want to do that, and then at that point, we may look at doing additional methods for having them pay that off. It's because it just will be an extra calculation for us. And then we will also have to have a process for removing the surcharge and reconciling back to what they potentially have already paid. So we don't want to set that up and advertise it at this point because we're not sure how many people will even be interested. But I think we will see if there's a lot of interest, it will probably be something we'd look at doing.
I think we should mention with that, this is Dennis Tharp, Director of Utilities, just so people understand, this is a flat number. We're not charging interest on this number. There's nothing about this that says that paying it off gains them anything. So as we see it, the charge as it is really makes sense to the customer.
Well, and Dennis, the only reason that, once again, Commissioner Crowley, the only reason that was brought up is I know that there's some additional funds that are running into some people's bank accounts the next couple of weeks, whether it be stimulus checks or tax returns. So they may have some additional funds right now that they could pay that off, right out the gate instead of, spreading it out that 10 months. So that was the question. That's the reason the question was asked of me.
Yep,
And this is Brian Knipe, Finance Consultant. And on that point, they could always pay extra and then manage their bill going forward, and we could apply their credit against their bill. So if they did want to do that, you could pay and build up a credit, and then just going forward, don't pay the surcharge, and it would eat up that credit. So there's a little more work for them to do that, but it is something that you can do. So.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kaler speaking. Director Tharp, just for perspective, and I know we've talked about the number of meters we have. Can you give us a rough estimate about, actually you can probably give us a total estimate or the total number of meters that we have in the city. It's not just a few hundred, it's several thousand.
Yes, we typically run around the 6,300 number on electric meters. And we run just under 6,000 on our water meters. And honestly, that's why we have the city broke up into 4 zones. So that we are able then to split up our billing a little bit and be able to get that all done on a monthly basis.
Because this is Commissioner Kaler speaking, because Steve and Janet can only walk so far. And 6,300 meters in 1 month is just probably not going to happen.
Yes, and
So-
they still read a lot of them. As you know, we are working to get AMI out there, and we do read some of those electronically now. And we will eventually get there, but that really doesn't change that much. It still makes sense to do the zone billing, and people that have grown to expect, especially people that have lived in their house for a long time, when that bill comes and plan for it.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have additional questions? All right. Thank you so much. I do want to kind of give an update on what has happened in the last 48 hours regarding this energy crisis, this extraordinary event. Yesterday, about 9 a.m., I was alerted that there was going to be legislation that was going to be read into the Kansas House. I do want to start this conversation out by saying that we are so incredibly fortunate to have the most amazing representation in Topeka and Speaker Pro Tem Finch. Not only did he draft this legislation, but he really carried the flag for it. And we are in great appreciation for what he has done. So at approximately 9 a.m. yesterday, I received notice that, and I think I was actually having coffee with our city manager, that we were going to have, this was going to be read into on the floor of the Kansas House, and that a few hours later, we were alerted that there would be a hearing at 8:30 in the morning, the following morning. We worked on on proponent testimony and got that in yesterday afternoon. There was a hearing this morning at 8:30, and then it was on the floor of the Kansas House at 11 a.m. It was voted on and passed 124-0, which tells you just the extraordinary support that it was receiving. Pardon me. And then it moved over to the Senate this afternoon, and at approximately 3 o'clock, debate began on that. And you can watch all of this debate if you would like on the Kansas Legislature's YouTube page. And it passed just shortly before 4 o'clock with one dissenting senator. The rest of them were all ayes. That bill began as House Bill 2429, and then it was taken in on the Senate side as Senate Bill 88 as a shell that it was put into so that they could concur on the bill and make it move faster. I want, just as a perspective, just to kind of tell you, I was reading through some of the testimony that we had received or that I had looked through, and there were 27 other cities that offered testimony today as a proponent for this. The city of Pratt has approximately 4,500 customers or accounts. In January, their total cost for their energy was $366,000. Their electric energy, this is all electric energy. In February, they're estimating their cost to be $4.1 million. So 366,000, and I can hardly even get it out of my mouth there, versus $4.1 million, a month's difference. In Lindsborg, they have an average customer bill of $80 a month, an average electric customer bill of $80 a month. In February 2021, they're expecting the average customer bill to be $640 without help from the Kansas legislature. In Sabetha, they have 1,800 customer accounts. On an average week, during the winter and in February, their electricity costs are $30,000 for a week of electricity. In the month of February, they estimate their electric costs to be between $700,000 and $800,000 for 1 week. That's just 1 week. Take it times 2. So I mean, it's a lot. We are not the only ones, and those are our neighbors all across the state. They're seeing some major impacts on what has happened. This legislation is a low interest loan that will be offered to municipalities to offset. They're not giving away the money, but they're offering us a loan so that we can, in the next 10 years, pay off that extraordinary cost. The loan comes at a very low interest. In fact, it's 2 points lower than whatever, and this is where our financial people get all excited about this, but 2 points lower than what is advertised. So at a minimum, it has to be 0.25% when or if we were to take out that loan to help pay for this. We do need to have some conversations tonight before we finish up, so that we can help Director Tharp and Director Lee know where to go, so that on Monday we have some things ready and in place. But before we do that, I want you commissioners to please have your be watching your email, be watching for texts. Our city manager has, and we have been alerted literally this afternoon after it passed, and I'm going to actually read it to you, that tomorrow there will be a webinar with the state treasurer describing the utility program and how applications will be made. And they're thinking it's going to be tomorrow afternoon. And then we need to be prepared to have a special call meeting, possibly tomorrow after. I don't anticipate this happening tomorrow that quickly, but it could. Tomorrow after that meeting with the state treasurer, or on Wednesday, to actually either pass a special resolution or pass the application process that we will want to turn in. The loan amount is for $100 million, and that is for the entire state of Kansas, which means there's no priority given. It's first one in is the first one given out. Second one in is the second one given out. You don't get special prizes if you are if you come in and your bill is the $101 million. So it is important that we stay on this if we are going to choose to take advantage of this low interest loan that is being offered to us. And I would highly encourage us to do that. The yeoman's work that was done on this, and it was quick yeoman's work. I know last night I was having conversations with the league executive director at 8:45 last night, having conversations about this, and having conversations at 11:30 last night about this regarding the speed that this was happening and how quickly this happened. But it is important to know that we're going to need some fast turnaround on it. But it is important too that we also make a decision on how we want to address the $1.2 million that the cost that was incurred. And I know that Director Tharp and Director Lee had both given us a couple different options. And so I'm going to open it up to you guys to please ask questions if you have about House Bill 2429, which is also Senate Bill 88. Or if you have questions about how you'd like to weigh in on either the sharing the cost with our citizenry of the $1.2 million, the reduced $700,000 that would come out of reserves, and how would you like to make that happen? And while you're mulling over your decisions and your thoughts and your questions, I am going to yield to our city manager, who has a little bit of insight about the loan. And just please know, things are changing rapidly. Things have been literally minute by minute. So I think our city manager has a little information for you.
So Mayor and City Commissioners, thank you, Mayor. Richard Ninestead, City Manager. As you're thinking about this, with your approval, of course, our thinking is that we apply for the $1.2 million. Now, why? We're paying our bills, but by doing it, we're effectively cutting our reserve in half. If we're able to borrow $1.2 million right now, and when I say reserve, right now, what's our latest cash balance, Brian?
Give me a minute and I'll get that figure.
Okay, so if I remember right, I think it's about $2.4 million. So what that does when we spend that is actually lower our cash available in the event we have an emergency. And we are, I think, as Dennis talked last time, there are some capital improvement projects that will be put on the back burner. The 1.2 coming in at least keeps us whole and keeps us in a better position to address what's coming down the road. And as the mayor said, we would be able to take 10 years to pay that. I don't envision doing that, especially if we have an attractive interest rate. But you could view this as a bridge loan to a certain extent. Brian?
And I might want to, this is Commissioner Kaler speaking. That loan does not go against our bond indebtedness, the indebtedness that we would have as a city, and that was specifically written into the legislation to make sure that it didn't go against that for what the city has on their books. Correct?
Right. And one more aspect about this Senate bill, this legislation, is it specifically says in there, if any federal money comes into the system for extraordinary cost, energy cost relief as a result of this event, that money goes back to the state in repayment of that loan.
Mayor Kaler, this is Commissioner Wagon. I've got a question of you, Richard, and you, if I may.
Yes, please.
If we enact the surcharge towards our users, our electrical customers, and then we get that loan, will that go to pay off that loan? Is that how that will work, rather than how do you have to manage that as far as customers paying a surcharge, then we get a loan? I guess it's just neutral to the customer. They're going to be paying it back anyway. We'll pay the loan back with their surcharge, and we just won't end up with a better cash balance.
In essence, our customers are paying the expenses. Okay, when they pay that surcharge back, that's going towards that $1.2 million. And in their rates, they're paying that towards it $1.2 million. Now, interestingly enough, Dennis and I had a long conversation about this today, and he may have something to add.
Before we move on, I know Commissioner Wigan, you had said, pardon me, Commissioner Kaler speaking, that we will end up with a better cash balance. We will not end up with more money.
No.
We will not end up with more money. We are not loaning more money than what we owe.
No.
We're not. This is not more money.
And it doesn't change the surcharge we're talking about.
No.
Okay.
No, we decide the terms of that, and it has to be paid, but it's trying to diminish the hurt of that.
The immediate hurt. Okay.
A good way of thinking about this is we just paid the first invoice, and you see what the second invoice is that we're going to be paying next week. So that pretty much matches if we take the $1.2 million loan.
Okay, thank you.
I explained it. This is Commissioner Kaler speaking. I explained it to somebody really in just like a citizenry terms, actually on my Facebook page, that it would be like if your hot water heater breaks and then next week we have a hailstorm and you have to get a new roof, and the day you pay for that new roof, the engine blows on your car and you have to have emergency dental surgery. We're just trying to not hit the blows so much, because we know things can happen at any point. We're not in charge of Mother Nature. We're not in charge of God's plan. And so we don't know what's going to happen next. But this gives us the opportunity that it gives us the ability to respond to an emergency quicker instead of taking half of our reserves and sending it to pay for these 2 weeks.
Mayor Kaler, Commissioner Skidmore, Brian, do you have that cash total? And also, do you happen to know what our average earnings is on our idle funds?
Yes, the cash total, this is Brian Knipe. The cash total is $2.4 million, and that's at the end of January is our most recent number at this time.
So half of that cash balance goes to pay for at the end of the week.
Yeah, you can think about it as like Richard said, a bridge loan, but you can also think of it as keeping our fund balance whole in the meantime, so that we can operate on a more normal footing, because otherwise we would be really strapped for cash if we can't get that loan, at least for at least a few months till that comes back up, because this is normally sort of a low time of cash flow for us anyway.
Commissioners, I think it might be worth saying, this is Wendy Lee, Acting Director of Finance, that Brian and Richard and I talked, and Dennis yesterday, or today when we talked through this, really felt like, as you all know, that we've spent 3 years as an organization, not just the utility department, but the organization, on a very, very strict no spend. We've dealt with COVID, we've rebuilt our cash balances, and we haven't reinvested some capital things that we would have. And so there is the possibility of some things kind of going bump, if you want to use Mayor Kaler's examples. And so we just felt like it was appropriate to borrow it to help us through that, while we collect back only partial of that payment from our customers. And Commissioner Skidmore, you asked about our investments right now. The market until this last week, as we heard on Monday, we were only being offered on our reinvestments a 0.4 interest rate. So in some ways, this is a good time to use our cash, but at a rate of 0.25 to borrow, we completely agreed as a team, we should take advantage of that. It won't be that kind of a low ever again. And not to say that we would extend it necessarily through the full 10. I think there's some, as the city manager said, there would be some possible payment as we're getting revenue back in that's on that surcharge. That would be up to him. But that's a great interest. That's just phenomenal interest rate. So.
Commissioner Kaler speaking, I might want to also point out that if we choose to take this loan, we do have, there are reporting factors that we have to do with this loan, which include every single January, there's a report that goes to the Kansas legislature on the cities, municipalities that still have outstanding loans. So we want to make sure that, we will be good on this. As a city, we will be good on this. I know that there was some limited talk in the Senate about even creating an oversight committee. I don't know where that actually ended up afterwards, but I would not be surprised if there's not something after that, just to make sure that we are doing what we have said we would do, and the city of Ottawa will.
Mayor Kaler,
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore, now, so the surcharge we were talking about earlier was involved $700,000 to be paid back in 10 months. Now we're talking about $1.2 million. Are we going to adjust the surcharge to somehow compensate for this, or how different will the surcharge be, since we're not talking about 700,000 anymore?
Well, it actually is the total bill is still $1.2 million, regardless of how we look at it. It is $1.2 million. We are paying that in the next, or just a shy under $1.2 million. We are paying that out of our pocket. In fact, we've already paid 500, if I'm correct, Director Tharp, $537,000 was our bill this week. And next week, our bill that is due, not next month, next week, is $654,000. So those are our bills, period, and we owe them, and we must pay them because that is what that's how we do it. We must pay them. So I do think that we need to have the discussion, and I know that I kind of threw a whole lot at you, kind of some information about this bill and about this loan program, and now I'm saying like we should talk about terms, but I do think that let's just finish up with any questions that you might have about the bill. Do you have any questions about the bill, how the bill was designed, what, how things came about? And then let's maybe just move to the next portion where we talk about terms and the appetite within our commission on how we'd like to address the bill that we are going to pay. So commissioners, are there questions that you have about House Bill 2429 or Senate Bill 88?
I have none.
No, I'm seeing a no. Okay. So let's move on to the conversation about the bill that we have already paid half of it, the 537,000, and next week we're paying 654,000. And so how would commissioners, we were given a couple different options, and it doesn't mean we have to necessarily go with those options, but I do think that they're very viable options. I wonder if Wendy, are you able to, and this is just me calling you on it, you don't have to do it right now because we can have that conversation, but if you could have ready for us the complete pass through that we would pass through all the estimated 1.2, it's just a little bit less than that, or the pass through the 700,000 to our citizens. If you do have those available to you. And commissioners, I think that I would open it up for you just to kind of weigh in on how you feel about those, or where your druthers on what you would like to do.
Mayor, this is Commissioner Wagon. Refresh my memory of why we initially in the study session felt like the 10 months would work better for us than the 12 months. The 12 months without any interest, we're not charging anybody any interest. So to make the payment $1 a month lower would go to 12 months. And refresh my memory why 10 works better for the city and maybe the customer.
May I take that, Mayor?
I think we've got a couple people who want to respond to that. Yes, Commissioner Kaler speaking. City Manager Neinstead and then Director Tharp.
Commissioner Weigand, that's a really good question. Here's what I would tell you. Don't forget, the electric utility is an enterprise. It is a business. It is it is just like the business that Commissioner Crowley runs, the business that you all are in. So when we took a look at this, we felt it was best to do it over the 10 months and try and capture most of those expenses that were spent this year in this year, rather than spreading it out longer and going into 2022. In effect, we were trying to get this event taken care of within 2021, so it did not linger in the 2022. And Dennis and Wendy may have something to add to that.
This is Dennis Tharp, Director of Utilities. I would just add to that one of our concerns was that we, within that period of time or just after that period of time, would experience another event that was very much like the one that we just went through. I think it's been said a number of times, we have no control over what happens next. But we thought if we could get through this really almost before winter next year, that we eliminate some of that risk of having another event and in essence, not being as prepared for it.
And I might also add this on whether you do the full 1.2 million or you just do the 700,000 that we've recommended as a surcharge. I think part of the confusion is because we actually perhaps overthought this and we were sensitive to our ratepayers, and we know some people are struggling. The $1.2 million is paid out of our reserves. The $537,000 is not money we have just laying around. We were fortunate enough we could pay that up front, say as a down payment. It will get paid back. Ratepayers will pay it back. They pay it in existing rates, however you want to look at it. And we thought that the $700,000 would be more amenable and help our households better if we just did 700,000. I can assure you, there, as Mayor Kaler shared with you, there are a lot of cities out there whether they're electric or gas, that don't even that are not even close to having that option to talk about.
Right. Okay, thank you, guys.
So Wendy has on the screen the $1.2 million that would be spread over 10 months. And as we discussed before, that would be an approximate for our residential users. Remember, this is just for residential users. So if you're looking at, you have a small business or you fall in another class, it is going to look different. But for residential users, that would be a $9.36 additional special charge over 10 months if we were to cover the entire bill that we will be paying, that we paid half of already and we'll pay the second half next week, $9.36. Wendy, are you able to advance to the other alternative? Yes. So if we were to pass on a portion of it, which would be $700,000, and the remaining is still going to be paid, it will be paid out of our reserves over 10 months. Pardon me. We would have $5.46 for residential urban users for the next 10 months. So those are the two slides that I wanted you to be aware of. Thoughts, commissioners?
Okay. What do we got to do tonight?
Commissioner Weigand, that is what I'm asking you. Is what are your druthers? What would you like to do, and so that we can set our staff prepare.
Do you want a motion?
1 second. Okay. So that we can prepare our staff and have them ready, so that we can have that ready for us on Monday, and we can be quick on the turnaround, or even quicker if we need to, for the turnaround on the application process. Is that, commissioners, do you have other thoughts? We've heard from Commissioner Weigand. Commissioner Crowley, do you have thoughts?
Yeah, actually, I was actually trying, Mayor Kaler, Commissioner Crowley here. So I guess is this kind of a two-part question, two-part answer? And what I'm asking is, are we both discussing the 700 or the 1.2, and then what we're actually going to pursue on the loan? Or are we just trying to figure out whether we want to do the 700 and the 1.2 now?
Yes, pardon me if that was if I didn't make that clear. We are only right now discussing, would we like to do over 10 months? Would we like to pursue the $1.2 million pass on? Or would we like to pursue the $700,000 pass on?
Thank you, because that narrowed my questions only down to about 30. So,
oh, great.
No, I'll be honest. I think after our conversation, Commissioner Crowley again, after our conversation Monday, I'm still set on. I'm still fine. I'm still fine with the 700,000. You know, the city taking on the burden of 500,000 over the 10 months.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Crowley. I appreciate that. Commissioners, do you have other thoughts?
Commissioner Skidmore, so would that mean we could borrow 700,000 from the state, or you borrowing 500,000 in that example?
We anticipate the complete bill is for $1.2 million. So the complete bill is $1.2 million. We are offering with the 700,000 to take a portion out of our reserves right now. But when we were talking about reserves, reserves only go as far as reserves can go. If there's an emergency, it only goes so far. So I'm not sure if I'm explaining that correctly. I wonder if City Manager Neinston, would you like to explain that better?
Mayor Kaler and Commissioner Skidmore, I kind of recognize there's a lot of numbers here, but the $1.2 million is being paid out of our cash balances. it's coming out of our cash balances. Now, we're asking you, we're choosing to request of you that but we only assess the 700,000 back as a surcharge. But truth of the matter is, this is all coming out of our cash balances. And I don't know if I'm answering your question or not. And perhaps if I'm not, please let me know.
Okay, Commissioner Skidmore, yeah, I guess what we're talking about is, are we gonna have the utility users pay back 700,000 of it over 10 months, or 1.2 million over 10 months? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's.
Okay, all right,
But we're going to borrow 1.2 million.
regardless.
Yeah.
So we're,
If you.
we're going to make a request of up to 1.2. You can't ask for more than what you, for what the emergency caused, the extraordinary event. And so that would mean that we cannot ask for more than, actually, I believe, Director Tharp, if I'm correct, it was at 1.19.
1.191, yes.
Yeah. So we could not ask for that alone in excess of $1.19 million.
And
Okay.
and so this is Wendy Lee, Director of Finance. Let me clarify then, that exact same number would be the max we would consider. It's either 1.191 over 10 months or 700,000. If we're really going to get into precision, Director Tharp said on Monday, and we completely agree, if you elected to pass on the entire thing of our exposure towards our customers, we would not ask for more than what we actually got billed for. While we do expect a few more expenses, so to be clear, we do think we're going to have some more, but we would only add a surcharge for 10 months of either our total exposure of the 1.191, or what we've recommended to you is that we only ask for a surcharge up to 700,000, leaving our customers harmless from about a third.
Okay. Mayor Kaler, this is Commissioner Weigand. I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, Commissioner Weigand, what is your motion?
I would move that we go for the 10 months and the 700,000 to be paid back by our consumers, and the other 500,000 to be paid out of our reserves. And that's my motion, that we go forward with the 10 months payback, or the $5.46 for the residential, and the others as illustrated by the chart.
Commissioner Weigand has made a motion that we, and I want to make sure I get the summary correct, that we pass on the $700,000 bill from the extraordinary event over the next 10 months. Is that correct, Commissioner Weigand?
That is true. That is correct.
Okay. Is there a second on that motion?
Commissioner Crowley will second.
Commissioner Crowley seconds the motion. Is there any discussion about this motion? I do want to point out that just in the discussion, we are not talking about the loan. This is truly this is our cost. So this is not about the loan. I'm sorry if that that muddied the water there for a moment, but this is truly about the cost that we have. Much like, I mean, if we have a bill, we have a bill, we have a bill. And there is nothing that we have any control over, but I know that we have to pay that. We will address the loan application very soon, but right now we are simply addressing the utility costs that we have for the extraordinary event that happened February 12th through the 19th, 2021.
Commissioner Skidmore, just another comment. It looks like if we do pay the state back over a 10-month period, well, the interest would only be about $1,400 on an amortized basis. So it's not that much of a cost to us. It is a great benefit. So I'm thankful for our state willing to work with us.
Absolutely. Any other discussion? Then we will proceed to vote on the motion.
How do you vote, Commissioner Weigand?
I vote yes.
Commissioner Crowley?
Yes.
Commissioner Skidmore?
Yes.
Commissioner Jorgensen is absent, and Mayor Kayler.
And I vote yes, motion carries. Thank you, commissioners. I know none of us like to pass this along, and we are all citizens here in the city of Ottawa. No one likes to be one of those individuals that has to do that. Likewise, no one likes it when it's minus 19 degrees outside either. But what I do know is that we did the work of making sure that our citizens' electric utility was kept on, and that unfortunately comes at a price that nobody likes to see. Commissioners, I may want to point out, I know we've had an extraordinarily long meeting tonight, and we are not yet done, but we have had great discussion this evening. So I am going to yield to our city manager for any report that he may have for us tonight. City Manager Neinstead.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Ricky Neinstead, City Manager. I want to tell you that I appreciate your engagement. I'm speaking on behalf of our staff too. I appreciate your engagement in this tonight. I don't feel that I've been able to give answers with clarity tonight because it's a complicated subject from where you're at and from where I'm at. But I can tell you, especially Dennis and Wendy and that finance team have participated in hours of discussion at this. And from where we started, right after we knew about the billings to where we are today, it's been very well refined. And we have always tried to keep in mind two things. What's the best for preserving our cash reserve, but primarily what is best to help our citizens through this. So I appreciate your engagement. I appreciate your questions. If you have more questions at any time, you know how to get a hold of me. You know how to get a hold of anybody. So thank you very much. I also want to tell you about a significant meeting. Before I pass on that, I want to tell you, and the mayor alluded to this, about how engaged our state representative, Speaker Pro Tem Finch, was in this. I've been an observer of the legislature for 41 years, and I have very rarely seen, I can't even remember what they were, when a bill gets taken up on one day, it gets passed unanimously in one house, and that afternoon it gets passed almost unanimously in the next house. That is very rare. But I think that speaks to just how Blaine does represent us and represent this state in the legislature. The other thing I want to give kudos to is to our mayor. As you know, she's chair of the League of Kansas Municipalities this year. And she's been involved in this discussion. She has kept me informed in this discussion. And it is helpful when you have somebody that can break through and call up the players that are involved in this and get direct answers. So I say thank you, Mayor Kayler, for your involvement. Another meeting we were in today was a bond rating meeting on our refinancing. For those of you who have not been involved in one, it can be pretty intense. Wendy was there, Mayor Kayler was there, Brian was there, we had David Atterbury, and we had Tyler in that meeting also. And we met for about 70 minutes, hour and 10 minutes. And we went, we started with what our qualifications are, what the qualifications of the management of the city are. what the qualifications of the elected officials are. We started there. We went all through the our community. What is it that sustains us? What's our population doing? What's our growth doing? What's our tax base doing? All through the financials of the city. And I wish you could have all heard that discussion and been able to see just where we've come from in the past several years. So this was done by Zoom. The Raiders out of Dallas. She told us a few of the stories that she had from being down there last week. And but that was an important meeting to have. So hopefully we're going to see something very productive next week on the rating. I also want to say to our citizens, vaccinate, 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 wear your mask, wear your mask, wear your mask. Vaccinations are happening now, and vaccinations are opening up. There's more places giving vaccinations. Call Franklin County Health Department, call your pharmacy, call Walmart, call Walgreens, call Kramer's. I took my first vaccination a couple weeks ago on a Saturday. My second one will be on March 20th. It is important that we do that. The more vaccinations there are, the quicker we just might get out of this and get back to normal. So I encourage everyone to sign up for your vaccination. I think they were into the late 1950s the last time I checked on who they were calling and everything. So with that, thank you, commissioners.
This is Brian Knipe. I just needed to say one thing real quick. I do not like giving out numbers as quick as I did, and I apologize. That cash balance is 4.1 million. It is not 2.4. I apologize. I ran the treasurer's report. It has not been rolled for the year, so it's much better than that. And I apologize.
Well, and I'll clarify that. Let me clarify that, Brian. That was the end of January, that number. We paid $550,000. So yeah, just go with us here. It's
lots of moving
minus 1.2.
So this is Mayor Kaler speaking. 3.5 million.
Yeah, until we pay this bill that we've just been billed.
And we're paying another bill.
Right.
Of another $500,000.
We'll transfer that money tomorrow.
It's quickly dwindling. It's much like many of our checkbooks right after Christmas, except for I didn't see any Christmas gifts.
No.
Yeah. Thank you. City Manager Neinstead, I appreciate your notes today, and I appreciate your absolute quick work on everything that has happened. That moves us on to reports by our city commissioners. City commissioners, I'm just going to let you choose. You just tell me when you're ready to go, and I'm ready to hear from you. So, and we all are. So, who would like to go first?
Commissioner Skidmore, I have no report.
Commissioner Wygand, I have no report.
Commissioner
Mayor
Crowley,
Pro
I have just a small one. I'd like to say thank you to Wendy, Dennis, the finance department, and IT, and everybody that put all the hard work into the last couple of days of the slideshow that we went over Monday and Wednesday. You've made my job as a commissioner easy the last 2 days, and I do not mean that facetiously. I really do. I've had multiple people come up and talk to me about normally when they see us talking about rate increases and things like that, they shiver. But that there was a really thorough, transparent explanation, and they felt better about, what we were talking about, and fully understood, after, watching that thing Monday and the conversation that I had with them about where we were heading. So thank you for your hard work the last couple of days.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Crowley. I appreciate that. That moves us on to report by the mayor. I do want to point out, and I don't want it to be glossed over, when we were having these conversations today about a $1.2 million bill that we paid for the extraordinary cold spell between the 12th to 19th of February, we do not want to miss that that bill would be almost doubled, if not doubled, if we didn't have the ability to make our own electricity. And we do, and that is huge. That should not be missed, that we would be looking at double of that if we didn't have the ability to make our own electricity. So hats off to our utility department, who really had to step in and step up during that really cold spell and help make sure that we didn't have any blackouts. We didn't have any unfortunate events. I know I was talking to a friend of mine who was a former commissioner in Lenexa, who we were supposed to have a conversation at like 11 o'clock one morning during the 12th through the 19th. And he texted me and said, I can't talk. I haven't had electricity for 2 hours and I don't know when I'm going to get it again. This is Lenexa, and they didn't have it, and we did. And I invited him actually to come down. I said, well, get in your car and come on down because we've got it here. So there you go. You should come visit us. And he didn't take me up on that, but he certainly could. So know that certainly is important to note that we had a huge cost savings because we were able to make our own utility. We do have, I have several thanks to give. Really, our city manager has done really yeoman's work in the last 48 hours to make sure that we were well represented under the dome, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you for all you've done to make sure that that our voice was heard. I also did, I can tell you when I graduated from OHS, and if Chris Cornhouse is listening, or if anybody hears this, please spread it to him, that I never thought I would be excited about being on a Moody's bond rating call, but it actually checked one of my box lists on my box, kind of my special list. And it was kind of interesting to be on a Moody's bond rating call. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of that today. I do want to send a speedy recovery note to Commissioner Jorgensen, who is out right now, but I know that he will be back with us soon. And so speedy recovery to him. And lastly, I do want to thank our Speaker Pro Tem and our Representative Finch for all the amazing work that he did on making sure that not only could our municipality be helped, but many municipalities across the entire state be helped during this event. We were fortunate enough not to be one of those municipalities that were looking at potential bankruptcy, but there are those out there, and there are neighbors here in Kansas that they couldn't pay the bill that was coming due because of they didn't have those cash reserves, and we did. And so thank you and bravo to our entire staff for making sure that they had the forethought of seeing, hey, we need a cash reserve. Great, we had it. But I'm telling you that there were other communities out there, neighbors, people that we know that did not have that luxury and that did not have the forethought to actually put together those cash reserves so that they could pay for those. So thank you, Representative Finch. I appreciate what you did, not only for our community, for your community, but for the entire state of Kansas on thinking, on moving this forward. So I sincerely appreciate that. Thank you so much. That moves us to the end of our agenda, and it's 9 o'clock. So I do want to announce that we do have our study session on the 8th via Zoom. On the 15th, we have a study session. On the 17th, we have our regular meeting. Commissioners, I do want to remind you what I had kind of placed that little thought or in your brain, that there is quite a possibility that we may need to have a special call meeting before the Monday meeting. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but just be prepared that if it needs to happen, we will want to do that to discuss the loan program that Representative Finch has put into play for us to have and utilize here in our community. and across the community there across the state of Kansas. So if we need to do a special call, we'll certainly let you know. And I know that our city clerk will be on that, and that our city manager will let you know as soon as possible, the second that we need to make that happen. If there's nothing else to be brought forth the city commission tonight, it is, well, my clock says it's 8:59, so I want to adjourn quickly before 9 o'clock. Have a great evening. Thank you so much.